Welcome, students. Uh, Hope you are safe. Today, we are going to discuss a very important topic that relates to entrepreneurship development, and that is managing the enterprise. Managing an enterprise is a big challenge. It requires arduous efforts and managerial skills to run a business profitably. It is therefore necessary to keep track on what is happening around the business environment, because business process is a dynamic process and a lot of changes are happening in the business ecosystem, and therefore monitoring is very important while implementing the business. It is necessary to examine and solve operational problems of the growing enterprise. This calls for implementing the management principles and a structure in the business. A control system needs to be established to identify the problems and resolve it quickly, because it is very important to solve the problems as soon as possible. Then, since the entire business process, entire business environment is a dynamic system, it is very important that an entrepreneur has ability to change and adapt with time. An entrepreneur needs to be aware of the new policies, strategies, and act accordingly to succeed and remain competitive in changing business environments. This is very important. As government frame rules and regulations for the operation of a business, the local bodies like municipal corporation also make rules which are being binding on business. Rules are being framed to safeguard the interest of the various stakeholders involved in the business across the value chain. So it is very important that an entrepreneur should be able to change according to the change happening in the business environment. Governments enforce several rules and regulations to ensure fair trade practices and fair competition, safeguard the interests of the consumer, other stakeholders, and collect tax from the business enterprises. The rules are not common for all the enterprises. It is very important to understand that rules are not common for all the enterprises. They are enterprise specific. Thus, entrepreneurs are required to remain watchful, keep themselves informed of latest standing orders that serve to control, regulate, and guide their business activity. So it is very important that an entrepreneur should keep eye on what is happening around, how the rules and policies are changing, what are the new provisions which have been made in the regulations, and then accordingly they should try to develop their strategies to harness the benefits of the business. Then, as we said, that rules and regulations affect the business according to the business style. And there are various types of ownership. One is sole proprietorship. In a sole proprietorship, individual is the sole owner of a business. All benefits from the operation of the business accrue to the sole proprietor. At the same time, all obligations associated with the business are also the personal responsibility of the sole proprietor. It is the sole proprietor, the owner, which has to take the responsibility of the business, and if there is any liability, he is liable for payment of those liabilities, settlement of those liabilities. There are certain advantages of sole proprietorship. Some of the advantages of operating as a sole proprietorship are relatively low startup costs. So when we go for sole proprietorship, it is usually done at a small scale, and thus it requires relatively low startup costs in the beginning. Then, ability to offset losses from the business against other sources of income. Since it is his business, if there happens to be some loss, then he can offset those loss from his other income sources, less formalities and filing requirements, and then control over the direction of the business. Since it is his own business, he can run the business as per his choice, as per his plan, as per his wishes. Then, of course, disadvantages are also there. The disadvantage of sole proprietorship is unlimited personal liabilities of the proprietor. If something happens, if some losses occur, then it is the sole proprietor who has to bear all the losses. He has to take the responsibility of all those losses. So all personal assets of the proprietor become vulnerable to the risk. Risk can be limited to some extent by contract or insurance. These are the provisions. By extending contract with the other persons or by going for the insurance, risk can be mitigated, can be minimized, but of course there is big risk in the sole proprietorship companies. Then less credibility in the eyes of potential business partners, because the scale of business is a small, proprietor is sole. Therefore, big business partners often do not go for or offer, consider their credibility as minimum, less. Then difficulty in attracting investment. It is another problem. Limited ability to use a share of ownership in the business as a retention and incentive tool for employees. This is also one of the disadvantages, since it is a sole proprietorship company. He can't, even if it wishes, he can't extend many benefits to his employees. Then ineligibility for many government loan and grant programs. There are several programs, several grants which are there for the big companies, corporate sectors, which are not available to the sole proprietors. Then ineligibility for unemployment insurance benefits in the event of failure of the business. This is another disadvantage. Then another form is partnership. Partnership is the relationship between two or more persons who jointly run a business and share the profit as well as risk in that business. So when we go for partnership, when we say a partnership company, it means at least there are two partners. There are two persons who jointly run a business, who share their resources, who share their profit, and then who also jointly share the risk associated in the business. All partners are jointly and severally responsible for all kinds of liabilities of the firm. Jointly means together and severally means separately. So they are equally responsible for the liabilities of the firm. The forms of the partnership has undergone many changes over the years. These new partnership types are intended to help mitigate the liabilities issues with the partnerships. The three most used partnership forms are general partnership, limited partnership, and limited liability partnership. General partnership is a partnership with only general partners, only general partners, common persons. All partners have unlimited liabilities. All partners, whether it is two or more, they have unlimited liabilities. Means each general partner takes part in the management of the business and also takes responsibility for the liabilities of the business. If something wrong happens, then all the partners are equally responsible, held equally responsible, and liable for the befitting response. Then limited partnership includes both general partners and limited partners. It has the attributes of both general partners and limited partners. A limited partner has a limited liability and does not participate in routine management of the partners. So keep in mind that in limited partnership company, there are two types of partners. One who has unlimited liabilities and the other who has limited liabilities. The partner who has a limited liability doesn't take part in routine management of the partnership. In many cases, the limited partners are merely investors who do not wish to participate in the partnership other than to provide an investment and to receive a share of the profits. So the limited partners make investment and then their interest is to earn profit out of that investment. Then the third form is limited liability partnership. Limited liability is different from limited partnership of a general partnership or a general partnership, but is closer to a limited liability company. In the limited liability partnership, all partners have limited liability. The limited liability partnership combines characteristics of partnership and corporation. So in the previous partnership type, what we see that there is one partner who has unlimited liability and other has limited liability. But in limited liability partnership, all partners have limited liability. Okay, it is just like a company, limited liability company. Similar to a corporation, all partners in limited liability partnership also have limited liability from errors, omissions, negligence, incompetence, or malpractice committed by other partners or by employees. What does it mean? Suppose if a partner commits some error or there is some negligence on his part, then or some malpractices, then what happens? The other partners are safe from his deeds. The person who has done will be liable for that. So, of course, any partners involved in wrongful or negligent acts are still personally liable, but other partners are protected from the liability of those acts. Then the next form is joint stock company. A company form of business organization is known as a joint stock company, which is a voluntary association of persons who usually contribute capital to carry on a particular type of business. So it is a voluntary association. People come together with willingness to contribute capital, okay, and in a business. The business is thus established by law and can be dissolved only by law. Okay, so since the business is constituted, established by the law, it can only be dissolved by the law. Those who contribute capital become members of the company. Joint stock company has a legal existence separate from its members. So company is a separate entity and its members are different from it. Okay, this implies that even if its members die, the company remains in existence because company is a separate entity. The total capital of a joint stock company is called share capital, and it is divided into a number of units called shares. Joint stock company has a joint stock company form of business organization is suitable where the volume of business is large and huge. It is suitable for a big business and where huge financial resources are required. And of course, the risks are also very high because the investment is high. Members of a joint stock company have a limited liability. Thus, it is possible to raise capital from the public with the ease. It raises the cap. It floats the share in the market, and people buy and become the shareholders. For business activities which require public support and confidence, joint stock form is preferred as it has a separate legal status. Certain types of business like production of pharmaceuticals, machine manufacturing, information technology, etc. are generally organized in the form of joint stock company. Then the other form is cooperatives. You are well aware of the cooperatives because we serve in the dairy sector where the cooperative has been very successful. Cooperatives are firms that are controlled and owned by their members who also work there. So they are the members, they are the owners, and they are the workers. Okay. It is served on the basis of cooperation. The principle is mutual cooperation. Cooperative models serve a useful role of awakening consciences and showing that there is an alternative way to organize economic activity. So it provides an alternative to the corporate However, successful models are few and far between an environment hostile to cooperatives. For cooperatives to develop, changes are needed in society values, political support, and economic system. Principles of cooperative enterprise. Cooperatives are firms that are controlled and owned by their members, who are the workers also. Cooperatives find affinity with the following principles. Membership is open and voluntary. Anyone can become the member if he wishes and fulfill the norms. There is democratic control at all levels of the enterprise on the basis of one member, one vote. Interest paid on share capital is limited. Some part of cooperative surpluses is devoted to members' education. Cooperatives cooperate among themselves. Then there are certain factors which need to be considered while choosing a particular type of ownership. It is very important. Success of business depends on the model of the business, the ownership type. So it is very important that it is meticulously planned, meticulously chosen, and these considerations are essential. That is nature of business. It is very important. What kind of business we are going to pursue? An entrepreneurship is trying to pursue. So nature of business is very important. Then the minimum output to achieve economies of production. So what is the minimum output? What is the scale? How it is going to expedite the economies of production? Economies of production. As the scale of production goes on, the cost per unit declines. This is called economies of production. So it is desirable that the scale of production should be such that it provides the advantage of economies of production. So this is very important. Then third is minimum turnover to make business commercially viable. What should be the minimum turnover so that the business becomes viable? This requires planning. This requires deep thought, deep consideration. Then requirement of a specialized and skilled personnel. What kind of person? What kind of personnel is required? What should be his qualification? So these are very important. Then requirement of capital. Capital is very important, plays a key role in the business. It is the investment made by the owner. So requirement of capital, how much funds will be required and how it will be available. Then return on investment, because the basic purpose is to earn profit, earn income. So return on investment is very important. Then extent of financial support in form of loan available from external sources. This is also very important, that what are the financial sources available and how much they are going to support. How much fund will be available from these sources. So we should know the source of the fund. We should know the requirement of capital. These are very important. Then liability of equity and ease of information. Registration associated with financial burden, tax benefits, concessions, grant and subsidies from government, and control over management. These are some of the factors that should be kept in mind before choosing a particular type of business model. Okay, so this is all about